Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to join the ends of your binding. So you're at the end of your project, bag, quilt, whatever it is that you're working on, and hopefully you left a nice straight open area where you can join the ends of your binding together to finish off your project. So the first thing you need to do here is somewhere near the center. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center. You're just going to make a mark. Okay, I don't recommend using a regular pen on your project. I'm just doing that so you can see what I'm doing. I'm working on a scrap anyway, so it's no concern to me. So we're just going to set the right tail over to the side to get it out of our way for a second, and we're going to work with the piece that's coming from the left. Okay, so this is bias binding. It has a little bit of stretch. So what you want to do is stretch it just a little bit, not crazy pulling on it hard like this, just a slight stretch, and then you're going to copy that center mark that you made over onto your bias binding, just like that. Okay, now this binding that I'm working with is 2 1/4 inches wide. So in the next step I need to keep that measurement in mind because I need half of that. So half of 2 1/4 is 1 1/8. So just keep that number in mind for a moment. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I need to trim this piece. And what I want here is for this to extend past that center line 1 1/8. Okay, so it has to be half the width of your binding. If you're using a different width, you take half of whatever your width is. Okay, this works for any width. So I want to measure coming from the left past that center mark 1 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I already measured mine. I'm just going to make it darker so you can see. And this new line that I just drew, this is going to be where I trim this piece. I'm going to cut right on that line. Okay, so now this piece coming from the left extends 1 1/8 of an inch past our center line. Okay, so for now we're done with this piece. Now we're going to work with the one that comes from the right. So we're going to do the same steps, just sort of in reverse now. This piece is coming from the right, so we want, you have your center mark that you transferred over to your binding, and you're going to measure past it. You're coming from the right, so you're going past the line over this way, 1 1/8, just like you did on the other side. Okay, so I'm coming from the right this time. There's my center line, and I drew another line 1 1/8 past that, and I'm going to cut on this line right here. Okay, so before I show you the next part, I do have a little confession here. This is bias binding. I still cut the ends straight like you would do with straight binding. I find it easier to do this way. I don't really see a reason not to do it this way. So I'm going to continue doing this even if you call the quilt police on me, or the sewing police. This is the way I will do it forever. Sorry. If anybody's a stickler for rules, I'm sorry. Okay, so now we need to actually sew these two pieces together. So this is a part where people sort of tend to get a little bit confused. What you want to do is open this piece of binding up like that. So the back of it is coming around the bottom like that. This is the right side of my fabric here. If it helps you to make a mark or something to help you remember which is the right side and the wrong side, sometimes it's not as obvious with certain fabrics, especially if you're using a batik. Sometimes the front and the back look the same. But for this part, you need to know which is the right side and which is the wrong side, because you don't want to get your binding twisted. Okay, so I'll show you that one more time, how I open this up. I'm taking the back of this is folded, so I'm just taking the back of it and bringing it around the bottom so it stays flat there. That's where I'm going to be sewing it. Okay, and then on this side, I want this side to be right side down. Okay, so I want to be looking at the wrong side over here. So for this part, I'm going to open it up by moving the front down. Okay, so it was folded this way, and I'm taking the front of it this time. Before I was using the back. Now I'm going to take the front and open it up by folding it down. Okay, so now what I want to do is just pull on this a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to show you that one more time just so I don't confuse anybody here. We had this open like this. Okay, I'm just going to bring it around a little bit just so I can get the two pieces flat together. Okay, we had this piece open this way, and we're going to put these two pieces right sides together, just like that. I usually stick a couple of wonder clips or a couple of pins here to hold this together. Okay, and if your project is getting in the way, like you can see mine sort of pulling over here and starting to get in my way, you can smush this down, especially if you're doing by any projects with soft and stable. You can just squish it down, put a clip on it, a clamp, or whatever it takes to keep it out of your way. Don't be afraid to squash it down. Okay, so I have those two pieces pinned together, and what I like to do next is I actually draw a line to sew on. Even after all this sewing that I've done, I still draw a line there, and I'm not embarrassed to say so. It helps me do this perfectly every time. There's no reason not to do it, so I do it. Okay, anything like that that helps you, do it. Don't be embarrassed. You know, there's nobody standing there giving you a score on this. It's just you in your sewing room, and you do whatever it takes for you to do things correctly. Okay, so you have to be a little bit careful here to make sure you're drawing this diagonal sewing line going the right way. So this piece that we just pinned together, it sort of looks like a little mountain. Okay, so we want this line to go across the mountain, side to side. We don't want it to go up and down. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line right here from this corner over to the corner over here. Now when I say the corner, I'm talking about the corner of the fabric that's underneath. Okay. Okay, so I drew my sewing line. I'm going to go sew this now, and I am going to backstitch a couple of times at each end just to make sure it's super secure. Okay, so I sewed that down. I can take my pins out now. And now what I want to do here, just to be super sure I don't cut the wrong part of anything off, and to make sure nothing is twisted, I'm going to lay this back down on my project, smooth it down, make sure that everything is done correctly here, nothing is twisted up. And if all is well, you can go back over here to our little mountain, and you are going to cut off the tip of the mountain about 1/4 of an inch above this line. It doesn't have to be exact. I would recommend trying not to go too much smaller than 1/4 of an inch, but it's a little bit bigger, that's no problem. And I usually just eyeball it. Okay, and now we press this seam open. Usually at this point in my project, I am way too eager to be done to actually put on my iron and iron this, so I just usually finger press it. If you like to iron it, more power to you for having that patience. I usually don't have it at this point. Okay, so now we want to put this back down flat on our project. Make sure that seam that I just pressed stays open, because you don't want a lump over here. You don't want to add to the bulk. Okay, so make sure that stays open, and then you can go back to where you stopped sewing over here. I usually go over the last few stitches again, and I backstitch again just to make sure this is all secure. Sew this down, and back to go over a couple of your stitches over here as well. Okay, and that's it. I hope you found this video helpful. As all the YouTubers say, please like and subscribe to my channel. I feel so silly saying that. If you're not in the Buy Any Bag Makers group on Facebook, please come join us. Beginner, expert, anything in between. We have a very good time there and share a lot of photos. And see you soon. Bye.